What's up everyone, my name's Alpha and today we're back with another Pokemon challenge video. Today we're back on the good old reliable. We're going back on Pokemon Radical Red and today's challenge is actually from the comments. I actually don't know where to find the comments, but someone in the comments said use ChatGPT to determine my Pokemon team for Pokemon Radical Red and see if I can actually beat through the game using an AI generated team. So it's going to be pretty interesting. As you see on screen right now, I am going to go through the process of asking ChatGPT. I actually got a pretty decent team the first time I did it. Unfortunately, I forgot to record and I had the screenshot of the team. So I had to redo it, obviously, to get the B-roll footage. And it actually turned out to be a pretty similar team. Now, they actually mentioned some specific moves. I could cheat and just forget about the moves, but I wanted to make it a bit more difficult by using these AI generated moves as well. They give 2 moves for each Pokemon, so those moves will be required on my Pokemon whenever I can learn them. Unfortunately, there are 2 moves I can't really learn. I can't learn Waterfall in Radical Red and also can't learn Hurricane on Charizard. So it's kind of unfortunate those 2 moves aren't going to be on my Pokemon, but we'll make do. I mean, I think a bunch of other moves are going to be interesting, like Gyarados Hurricane. Anyways, on top of that, we're going to try to beat Radical Red, obviously. Default difficulty. And each of my Pokemon will be nicknamed after you guys in the comments. So thanks so much for leaving a comment in my previous challenge video. If you guys want to be nicknamed after a future Pokemon in my future challenge video, just drop in the comments and hopefully I'll pick yours. And while you're down there, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to my channel. It means a lot to me. Anyways, let's get into the challenge video itself. So to begin off, it's actually interesting. I didn't know Abra actually spawns in this grass area. So we're going to go out and hunt for Abra. Unfortunately, Abra teleports almost all the time, so it's gonna be very luck dependent on catching an Abra. Now we're gonna decide on an Abra which has knockoff for an egg move, so it's gonna be pretty interesting. We're also gonna head into Vermilion City next, and we're gonna save in front of this egg merchant, and we're gonna go and hunt for our next Pokemon. We can get a Riolu, we can get a Larvitar, and we can get a Dratini from this egg. So it's going to be pretty interesting what we get. Surprisingly, it didn't take too long. I'm pretty sure you can have any Pokemon that's a basic stage of another Pokemon. So it could be any Pokemon that evolves basically. And surprisingly enough, it didn't take us that long. It took us like 10 to 15 minutes to actually get ourselves a Dratini from the egg. So we actually have a pretty strong team. As you can see, we have a 3 Pokemon lineup of our Charmander, Abra, and also a Dratini. So we're gonna make our way into facing off against Faulkner. Faulkner is the first mini boss in the game where you have to beat him to unlock the first gym. We unfortunately lose our Abra, but then our Charmander goes crazy with ancient power, end up knocking out his entire team for us. And yeah, we end up beating down Faulkner, and now we're gonna head into the first gym in the game. We're gonna face up against Brock next. Brock is gonna be the rock type gym leader in the game, and we're gonna start the battle off against him using my Abra. Abra is just here to just basically bait out the explosion from the Geodude, which works perfectly. From there, I go out into my Dratini, which works great. He goes out to his Onix, which I'm able to knock him out with a Dragon Rage. And at this point, I'm pretty sure I get Thunder Wave off against the Vulpix and sack my Dratini. Go out to my Charmander, and Charmander is able to knock out the Vulpix, get a stat boost, and also basically 1v1 the Arcan. I mean, super simple. We're able to get our first gym badge in the game. Make our way into the Mount Moon Poke Center, which we're able to get ourselves a Magikarp, which obviously on a team, because Gyarados is really good. Unfortunately, we actually have a Gyarados that needs to have Hurricane. I don't know how that's gonna go, but we're gonna head into Mount Moon next. Mount Moon's gonna be a pretty easy place as we have pretty strong Pokemon. We even beat down Archer on our first try, and then from there we're able to move out. Actually, we moved backwards. We forgot to catch yourself a Riolu in here. We could catch yourselves a Riolu in Mount Moon. So we have 5 members of our team already. We're also gonna groom our Pokemon. Sound a little weird, but we're going to groom our Pokemon, raise the happiness of Riolu, and evolve it into Lucario, which is going to be amazing. From there, we're going to face up against the second gym leader in the game. We're going to face up against Misty. Misty is going to be the water gym leader, and we're going to start the battle off against her using my Lucario. Lucario has Power Punch and Swords Dance, has infinite setup. We're able to get a nice Power Punch into a Mach Punch to knock out the Frogadier, and then her next Pokemon will be a Starmie, which I go out into my Alakazam as a sack. I go out into my Dratini next to get a Dragon Rage and also a Thunder Wave. From there, I'm able to go for a Thrash with my Gyarados to knock out the Starmie and also the Lantern that switches in, unfortunately for that thing. And then my Gyarados is able to just beat down the Floatzel as we get our second gym badge in the game pretty easily. Now from there, we're going to move out into the SSN, which isn't too deep. I mean, we're able to get through it. Most of the fights a little more difficult than actually regular fights, but these should be manageable as we're able to beat down our rival in here as well. Get the HM for cut, and now move out into Vermilion City's gym. Vermilion City's gym is going to be the luxury gym in the game, and we actually struggle against it. Surprisingly, we lost a few times against them. So you can see it's not the best. The Manectric is a big problem because our Gyarados is pretty much nullified in this fight. So anyways, we're going to start this battle off against Lieutenant Surge using my Kadabra. Kadabra is able to get decent damage on the Pinch Urchin, able to actually stall out until the electric terrain is actually weared off, and I'm able to knock him out as well. The Raichu comes out next, which will knock out my Kadabra, which I go out into my Lucario. Lucario is able to get a Bulldoze into a quick attack to knock out the Raichu, force out the Manectric. So I go out into my Dragonair, which will Dragon Tail out, not allowing it to set up, and then it can go out to his Bolton. I switch in between my Gyarados and also Dragonair to lower his attack state, and then switch out into my Charmeleon. Charmeleon is able to go for 2 Rock Tombs, lower his speed twice, and then go for a Blaze boosted Flame Burst, which will knock out the Bolton, and then unfortunately will go down against the Manectric. Do the same thing, I go out into my Dragonair to Dragon Tail out the Manectric, force out the Vikavolt, and from here I can set up with my Lucario to knock out the Vikavolt and also knock out the Manectric. So we end up getting our 3rd Gym Badge in the game finally, and then from there we can move out into the Rock Tunnel, which we'll breeze through since we have fully evolved Pokemon at this point. Speaking of that, we also evolve our Kadabra into an Alakazam once we head into Celadon City, and then from there we can face up against Erica next. Erica is the grass gym leader in the game. We're going to start the battle off against her using my Charizard, which has Heat Wave. We also have Flare Blitz because it's required, so I don't know what kind of build we're going to have on Charizard, but we're able to Heat Wave, knock out the Rillaboom. Her next Pokemon will be an Electrode, which I know is going to go for Discharge or an Explosion. I go out into my Dragonair, baits out the Discharge, and then goes for an Explosion, knocks me out. Her next Pokemon will be a Meganium, which I'm able to go for a Heat Wave, survive an Ancient Power, which 4 times weak by the way, a Heat Wave to knock out the Meganium. Her next Pokemon will be a Superior. Somehow, I'm going to get a dual Wing Beat off against her to knock her out as well. And then her final Pokemon will be a Venusaur. I get a bit of damage, should have went for Heat Wave. On special attack natured, but from there I go out to my Alakazam to Psychic, knock out the Venusaur. Very easy Gym Badge. And now we actually move out into the game corner. And our final Pokemon will be a Larvitar or a Tyranitar. I remade sure this Larvitar has its hidden ability, so when it grows up and evolves, it doesn't have Sandstream to annoy my team. And also, I made it shiny because, I don't know, for fun. I had enough money just to do it. From there, we can face up against Giovanni next. Giovanni's a very difficult fight. We get stuck here for a little bit. Eventually, we get it done with our last Pokemon as Dragonair. We're able to beat down Giovanni, finally evolve our Dragonair into a Dragonite now, and then head into Silph Co and face up against a rival in Silph Co. We're able to start the battle off against him using my Gyarados, and this is the only time you see a Hurricane. Actually, this is another time where a Hurricane's useful, but we're able to get a Hurricane Confusion on the Blastoise as he actually Shell Smash ups, so he's gonna hit himself in Confusion and knock himself out. From there, I beat through my rival and also beat down Ariana and Archer. We struggle a little bit against Giovanni once again, which is unfortunate, but eventually we get the lucky Tyranitar and knock out the Poltegeist. Poltegeist always annoying for the end. But from there, we're going to face up against Sabrina next. Sabrina's going to be the 5th gym leader in the game, also a double battle fight in Psychic Terrain. So we're going to start the battle off against her with my Gyarados and Tyranitar against her Hatterene and Indeedee. We're going to start the battle off by trying to go for a Crunch into a Rock Slide to actually flinch down the Hatterene. And then in the following turn, we can knock out both the Indeedee and Hatterene. We're to force the Indeedee to not use Expanding Force because it's not very effective against my Tyranitar, and it works out pretty well. Her next Pokemon will be a Gardevoir and Crawdaunt combination, which lowers my attack stat, but I'm able to go for a Rock Slide to knock him down to low HP. She knocks out my Gyarados, which I could go out into my Lucario next. Lucario is able to get a close combat against the Crawdaunt, and my Tyranitar is very slow still, so I'm able to go for a Rock Slide to knock out the Gardevoir and close combat to knock out the Crawdaunt. Her next 2 Pokemon will be a Porygon 2 and an Ursaluna. Ursaluna always goes for Protect on first turn. Unfortunately, Lucario goes down, and I don't do enough damage with Rock Slide. From there, I go out to my Charizard. Charizard is able to do a bit of damage, against both the Ursaluna and the Porygon 2. Unfortunately, my Tyranitar goes down, but at this point, I go out into my Alakazam. Because the Trick Room goes down, I'm able to go for a Psychic to knock out the Ursaluna and also knock out the Porygon 2, as we're able to get our 5th gym badge in the game pretty easily. Now from there, we can go into the dreaded Cycling Road, which we obviously lose a few times. We black out a few times back to the Poke Center, but we're able to actually eventually go into Fuchsia City, face off against a rival at the Safari Zone, get the HM for Rock Smash, and also get the HM for Surf, and then face up against Koga next. Koga is the 6th gym leader in the game, and we're going to start the battle off against him using my Tyranitar. Now Tyranitar, not too sure why I went for Crunch instead of a Rock move, but it works out as we're able to beat down the Swallow, and then his next Pokemon will be a Greninja with Battle Bond. I go out into my Gyarados, hoping I could do something. I go for a Dragon Dance and then go for a Crunch. Doesn't do enough damage, but he also doesn't, as he's eventually going to get knocked down to low HP. He ends up knocking himself out with a Life Orb, which is funny enough. His next Pokemon will be a Toxicity Trait, which VMAXes. I go out into my Dragonite. I know it's going to go for a Volt Switch. He Volt Switches into his Drapion as I get a Dragon Dance off against him and then go for a Dragon Rush. I don't outspeed him, obviously, so eventually I'm able to knock out the Drapion. His next Pokemon will be in a Selgor, which I know he doesn't have anything to knock me out, so I get a second Dragon Dance. As he goes out to his Dragapult next, I'm going to get a Dragon Rush and knock him out as I finally outspeed stuff. And then Extreme Speed to knock out the Selgor. His next Pokemon will be a Toxicity, which actually still outspeeds me. This thing is very fast. Go out into my Alakazam thinking I can outspeed it, but I don't. But luckily enough, I live it. Psychic would knock him out though, and we end up being Koga. And we double check. Alakazam is not fast enough to get the Life Orb from Koga. We have 6 gym match in the game though, and from there we move out and face off against May in Cinnabar Island. You may think that I forgot something, and I did. I forgot to get the Choice Band and also the Choice Scarf. We eventually get the Choice Band, but kind of just leave the Choice Scarf because I forgot about it. They also beat me up pretty badly. From there, we're going to face off against Blaine next. Blaine's going to be the 7th gym leader in the game. We're going to start the battle off against him using my Tyranitar. Tyranitar got the Rock Slide, flinch off, and we're able to knock out the Torkoal in 2 turns. His next Pokemon will be an Executor, which I'm able to go for a Crunch against him, knock him down to low HP, and then switch out into my Charizard, which is able to knock him out with the Heat Wave. And his next Pokemon will be his own Charizard, which is going to set up the Sun once again, knock me out, but I'm able to go out to my Alakazam to go for a Psychic. Oh wow, that didn't kill him. Go out into my Dragonite, which will go for an Extreme Speed, knock him out, Extreme Speed a Typhlosion to break his Soul Blaze, and then go out to my Gyarados, which is able to get 2 or 3 Dragon Dances off against him, even also knock him down to low HP with Crunch, avoiding any damage with Eruption, and then we're able to knock out the Typhlosion, avoid the Sucker Punch with Cinderace. Very easy play right there, just do a status move 1 turn and then attack the next turn. Alcatraz to knock out the Sunflora, and we end up beating Blaine down pretty easily. Now, our next challenge, we're going to face off against Team Rocket in Celadon Cave. Celadon Cave is pretty easy. We're going to start off by facing off against Archer, clear through him pretty easily, and then Ariana comes next. They're both easy with this team, surprisingly. Even my Alakazam outsmarted and outplayed Omega Mawile with Sucker Punch, so yeah, it was pretty easy for us. From there, we're going to face off against Giovanni, and pretty much the whole story of this game. Our team is not that great against Giovanni. We're getting cooked up every single time we see Giovanni. Takes us a little while, but eventually the only way for us to actually make it work is actually switch in between my Dragonite and also Tyranitar against the Mewtwo, forcing it to just go for Aura Sphere or Expanding Forces, and then eventually we're able to go for Dragonite and Crunch to knock out the Celesteela. We're able to beat down Giovanni and then face up against the next gym leader. We're going to face off against Claire next. Claire is the final gym leader in the game. We're going to start the battle off against him using my Lucario to close combat and Bullet Punch to knock out the Aerodactyl. Her next opponent will be her own Dragonite, which I go out into my Gyarados, which is able to go for a Crunch. I was thinking about Hurricane. I was really thinking about Hurricane, but Crunch to get him down to low HP. Go out to my Lucario to Bullet Punch. Her next opponent will be a Dragovich, which I decided to sack my Lucario here and then go out into my own Dragonite. She decides to switch out into a Duraludon as I get a Dragon Dance up and then Dragon Rush, and then a second Dragon Dance because I do have multi-skill, and then an Earthquake to knock out the Duraludon. The next Pokemon will be a Dragovich, which, okay, how did this work? I go for a Dragon Rush, and of course it misses. Then she's going to knock me out with Outrage. I go out to my Alakazam next. Alakazam's able to tank an Outrage, eventually knock out the Dragovich. Her next Pokemon will be a Magearna, which goes for a Flare Cannon, knocks me down, and I go out into my Dragon Dancing Physical Attacking Charizard, which is able to go for a Flare Blitz and knock out the Magearna. Her next Pokemon will be a Naganadel, which I go for a few Flare Blitz. It doesn't work out, but she lowers her own attack stat too low, so I can go out into my Tyranitar, which is going to Earthquake and knock her out, and we end up beating Claire, get the 8th gym badge in the game, and now we're going to face off against both our rivals. We beat down our rival Blue pretty easily, and also Brendan. He has a very obnoxious Jirachi, where we can still beat him down, and then face off against Victory Road. I forgot how annoying Victory Road is, not because of the trainer, it's because I run out of PP on all my moves. But eventually we're able to clear through Victory Road and head into the Indigo Plateau. We do our final shopping, and then we're going to face off against the Gauntlet, the Elite Four. Now actually I completely forgot about Mega Pokemons. I have like 3 different Mega Pokemons on my team, so I decided to throw out a Mega Ring onto my Charizard because we actually got the Charizard Y from Blaine. So we're able to actually go out into my Charizard, start the battle off really nicely with a Flare Blitz and in the sun to knock out the Glaceon, and then go for a Swords Dance with my Lucario. The Ninetales can go for Aurora Veil and just look stupid. We're able to go for a Flare Blitz in the following turn to knock out the Ninetales. And then we're able to go for a Close Combat to knock out the Rotom as well. Her next two Pokemon will be a Calyrex and a Azumarill. I want to keep my Charizard just to keep Sun as I go out to my Gyarados. Close Combat almost knocks out the Calyrex, but unfortunately Glacial Lance will also do a lot of damage to my Gyarados and knock out my Lucario. I go out into my Alakazam next. Alakazam's able to knock out the Calyrex for me, and then she's gonna knock out my Alakazam. As I go out into my Tyranitar and switch out my Gyarados as she sends out her Abomasnow. This will obviously gives me the weather advantage. My Charizard goes down, but Stone Edge from my Tyranitar will knock out the Abomasnow as we're able to just 3v1 against the Azumarill and eventually knock out Lorelei and gets, well, we don't get anything, but we clear through the first gauntlet. From there, we're going to face off against Bruno next. Bruno is going to be the fighting type Elite Four member. We're going to start the battle off against him using my Charizard. Just go for Dual Wing Beat with a Mega Mode. We're able to knock out the Infernape. His next Pokemon will be an Urshifu, which I go out into my Tyranitar, which is just kind of bait. Unfortunately, I have Choice Band on, so you know what? I'm just going to stack my Tyranitar. That was a stupid play. I have Protect and Dragon Dance with Choice Band. But I go out into my Charizard next. Charizard is able to get a Dragon Dance and then a Flame Charge to knock out the Lucario somehow. And then from there, we're able to knock down the Como to low HP, survive a Clangor's Scales, and then knock him out with a Dual Wing Beat. His next one will be an Urshifu, which I also knock out with a crit. Then he finally sends out his Conkeldurr, which is to knock out my Charizard. I go out into my Alakazam to knock out the Conkeldurr. And his next one will be a Zacian, which is going to Behemoth Blade and knock out my Alakazam. From there, I send out my Dragonite next, because Dragonite has multi-skill, Earthquake to knock him down to low HP, send out my Lucario, bait the Close Combat, and then finally send out my Gyarados to Aqua Tail, knock out the Zacian, and we're able to beat down Bruno. And from there, we can face off against Agatha next. Agatha is going to be the Ghost type Elite Four member in the game. We start the battle off against her using my Tyranitar, because Tyranitar is part Dark type. She can't really do too much to me as I'm able to crunch down the Silph Valley as well. And then switch out into my Lucario. Get Thunder Wave, but Close Combo will knock out the Silph Valley. Ooh, lived, barely lived that. We can go down to the Marshadow, but we're able to go out into my Charizard next. Charizard is able to get a Dual Wing Beat, and for some reason she bulks up again, and I knock her out. So, you know what? It works out. Her next Pokemon will be a Gengar, which I'm able to get a Flare Blitz off against and knock her out. Her next Pokemon will be a Zoroark, which I get a Flame Charge and knock her out. And then her next Pokemon will be a Spectre. I sack my Charizard to it as I go out to my Tyranitar, and she decides to switch out herself into an Aegislash, which goes down in one shot. Her next Pokemon will be a Spectre once again. I go out into my Gyarados to two-shot it with Crunch, and we end up beating Agatha in a very easy battle. Now from there, we're going to face off against Lance next. Lance, also easy battle. We're not going to face off against his Garchomp team though. We're going to face off against his Aerodactyl team because it's much easier, as we're able to go for 2 Bullet Punches to knock out the Aerodactyl. His next Pokemon will be a Dragonite, which I go out into my Gyarados. Gyarados is able to get a Crunch off to the Salamence as he switches out, and I'm going to switch out into my Tyranitar, survive a Dragon Dance boosted Earthquake, and his Stone Edge would knock out the Salamence, which is insane. He sends out his Primal Dialga next, which I can actually handle this with a lot of different Pokemon, which I went out to my Alakazam just to get a Focus Blast off against him, and it actually works out. I get a Crunch also to lower his defense stat, and then he Roar Times me, switch me out back into my Alakazam, which I'm able to go for a Focus Blast again, and don't miss. It don't miss. From there, he's going to switch out into his Dragonite and knock me out. The work's already been put in. I'm able to go out to my Gyarados, crunch it, break its multi-skill at least, and do some chip damage. Go out to my own Dragonite, which will go for a Dragon Dance. I'm going to go for a Dragon Rush. Of course it misses, but a second one will knock out the Dragovich. His next Pokemon will be a Melmetal, which I go for an Earthquake. Does a lot of damage to it, but it's going to knock me out. And then I can go out into my Charizard. Charizard is able to go for a Flare Blitz, knock out the Melmetal, and his final Pokemon will be that Dragonite. I can survive any move. I also have Dragon Claw, and I outspeed him. Oh, I lied. I lied. I cannot survive any move. But I can go out to my Lucario to Bullet Punch, and we end up beating Lance. And now we head into the final battle of the game. We're going to face off against our rival next. Our rival is going to start the battle off against us using a Pheromosa. I started with my Charizard because I know it's going to U-turn into its Eternatus. I'm able to get a Bodos off against him and do a lot of chip damage. Eventually, he's going to knock me out with a Meteor Beam, which is alright. I get a lot of damage. I'm able to lower his speed a lot. Go out to my Alakazam to Psychic, knock him out. Bait in Yveltal, and I go out into my Tyranitar next. Tyranitar is able to go for a Stone Edge and knock down the Yveltal. No, it doesn't knock him down. I go for a Dragon Dance. I'm eventually able to knock out the Yveltal, but he's gonna switch out into his Pheromosa. I go for a Protect, thinking he might high jump kick me. I thought he could just pull that move out of nowhere, but I go out to my Gyarados. I survive a close combat and also survive 2 triple axle kicks as I'm able to go for a Hurricane against him and then go for a Dragon Dance once again, and then I can knock him out. And the next Pokemon will be a Mega Metagross, which I get a Crunch off. Doesn't knock him out though, as he knocks me out. I go out to my Dragonite, which is able to go for a Dragon Dance, and he switches out to his Primal Groudon, which I didn't expect. So at this point, I know Earthquake isn't gonna kill, so I say, you know what? Let's try it out. I have Multi-Scale, Dragon Rush, flinch, and it does flinch him. I'm into Earthquake and knock him out as well. His next Pokemon will be a Metagross, which I'm able to Earthquake, knock him out. And his final Pokemon will be a Ditto, which I'm able to, well, he copies all my stat boosts, and now he locks himself into Dragon Rush, which unfortunately I tried my best to throw this for some reason. I just used every single wrong move possible. Earthquake, it's a flying Dragonite. Of course, what am I doing here? Eventually, it's going to struggle to death because it runs out of PP because it's a Ditto. And we don't throw this fight as we're able to beat down our rival Blue and we secure our win in Radical Red using only an AI generated team. Now this AI generated team actually wasn't the best team. I wasn't really ecstatic with it. On paper it looks great, but the movesets weren't great. The Pokemon itself don't have a lot of synergy, and I lost a lot of fights. Surprisingly, I reset over at least 20 times in this entire playthrough, which it might not be a lot because it's a difficult ROM hack, but if it's the best team, I don't think you should restart over like 5 times. Maybe we'll try it again another time. But anyways, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. If you guys can, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. It means a lot to me. Anyways, my name's been Alpha. Hope you guys all have a great day, and I'm out. Peace.